So there's a question here about the master's program versus the doctorate MPT and DPT. Can you, the three of you, elaborate on what your take is on the if there are any differences between the MPT and the DPT, and ultimately what those two programs are?
Um, I don't know. I'll dive in, I guess. So I know that so my program is 3 years long, and you get summers off and like just regular time off. And I think in Canadian programs, it's like 24 months or 26 months straight through with like no breaks. Uh, I think the technical like time in class is the same. And like, so this is a bit of a harder one for me to say what the master stuff offers in Australia because I'm not 100% sure, but I know that the way they explained it to us in the program, but maybe they were just selling us, was they were trying to kind of prepare us for like the future of physio. So we actually we did like a class on medications or like a few classes on medication and like learning how to prescribe really lightly. Because like that was potentially down the pipeline for Australia. So I'm not sure if the master's programs did that, and we also learned how to read imaging. So like read MRIs, read X-rays, read ultrasounds, and that kind of stuff, because that was also potentially down the pipeline, so that we could like order them and whatever else. There are a couple of other things. Now, it was really useful skills. The problem that I found with that, and what to say whether it's like necessarily worth it to do a DPT or not. Is just that will you be able to use it in the near future? And when you go to use it, you might have to get recertified anyways and pay money or do extra training because it'll have to transfer over if you come back to Canada. So that would be kind of like something that you have to think about, and also just like with how it would work in Australia. The education itself, I will say, was like insanely useful. It's not like I'm a radiologist by any means, but having that ability and like working with what other other physios and whatever else to look through and read and understand like the language and the terminology that they use has been like really helpful, because sometimes it's like a bit like, oh, you're like, oh, what does like full thickness mean versus this, and like the way they describe it, it's all like very categorical, so it just makes it a little bit easier to understand. So it's helpful in that sense, but like I said, in terms of like actually pushing you forward in your career, like pre-certifying you, it doesn't do that. You'd still need to get extra certifications for
Um, and for me, in terms of choosing between the doctors and the masters, depending on where you go and practice afterwards, there may be no difference in terms of like whoever hires you. They may say like, oh, great, you have a doctor's. I'm going to pay you the exact same as someone who has a master's and the exact same as someone who has a bachelor's degree. So for you, then it might be the extra clinical experience that you would gain. We didn't have like that, the MRI imaging. We definitely had skills lectures in interpreting chest x-rays and other things like that, relevant for like hospital placements. But I would say ours was definitely more like the core physiotherapy skills without too much into like future specializations. Like the medication prescribing is something I only found about through placement, because one of the supervisors I had for a day was on his way to do that, but he was going through a 2-year course to be able to prescribe medications. So I think Dan's right. It's like, can be really cool to experience that and give you the knowledge to be able to interpret things that your patients are on, or maybe understand the decisions of the other medical team. But when it comes down to being able to do anything with it, are you really are you going to have to do another 2 years of education? I think it's pretty cool. For me, it was for masters, it was like 2 years versus 3. An extra year is an added cost, and I just knew that I wanted to basically come back, or I wanted to start practice basically as soon as I could, and then be able to do specialty areas afterwards. So that was my decision making.